All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, I'm going to be talking about today the teams that have the best chance in the upcoming college football season to make that coveted field of four for the college football playoff. I'm going to start off with the defending national champions in the Alabama Crimson Tide. And for my money, once again, Alabama is a step ahead of everybody else in the SEC. As you think about it under head coach Nick Saban, Alabama simply does not rebuild, they reload. And we saw so much talent lead that national championship team from a year ago. But I think Alabama's going to be back in the mix once again. You think about it with quarterback Bryce Young, wide receiver John Mechie, and of course, Nick Saban leading the charge. And, for my money, Alabama's a step above everybody else in the SEC. Could Alabama potentially lose one conference game? Yes. But I think this Alabama team definitely has the ability to bounce back from a potential loss and be right back in contention for the national championship. Then I'm going to look at the Ohio State Buckeyes. This is a team just like Alabama, they don't rebuild, they reload. Ohio State got to that national championship game last year. A lot of that was predicated by the ability of quarterback Justin Fields, who is now in the NFL. But Ryan Day is going with freshman CJ Stroud. But the talent is still there, especially when you think about running back Master Teague, for the Buckeyes to navigate their way through the Big Ten. And like Alabama, Ohio State could lose one conference game due to the fact that the Big Ten is so tough. But I think Ohio State has the ability, and the Big Ten is strong enough for Ohio State to overcome that loss potentially and be right back in the mix for the college football playoff. Heading to the Big 12, I'm looking at Oklahoma. And, the Sooners are going to have some tough competition this year in the Big 12 from the likes of Iowa State and TCU. But you look at this team and they're so talented, starting with quarterback Spencer Rattler, that, the Sooners should be able to navigate their way through the Big 12 conference. And just like it was, or like it is potentially for both Ohio State and Alabama, should Oklahoma lose a conference game, I think they have the ability to rebound and be right back in contention for the playoff. You look at LSU, and, the Bayou Bengals are looking to bounce back after having a tough 2020. Of course, we saw Louisiana State win the national championship in 2019. They clearly had the best team out there, but it just never came together last year for LSU. I look at LSU, the talent is there. They just have to figure out who's going to be their quarterback. Is it going to be Max Johnson or Grant Nussmeier? But you think about it with Keyshawn Boutte at wide receiver, guys like Derek Stingley Jr. on that defense. But for me, just for the sake of argument, if LSU failed to win the SEC West, and let's say that their only loss this season comes to Alabama, LSU could sit back and watch other teams falter on a conference championship weekend, and they'd be right in the mix to get into that field of four if they're able to take care of business. And again, the SEC West is very tough. So let's see how LSU can navigate their way through that. But you look at it nonetheless, we saw it before a couple of years ago with two SEC teams getting in, and it would not surprise me to see that happen once again this time around. I'm also looking at Georgia, because you look at Georgia, there's a good chance that they could run the table during the regular season. I want to see what they can do in their first game of the year in Charlotte versus Clemson. That is really going to be the telltale to see what the dogs are going to look like this year. The talent is definitely there. You think about Georgia with their rich history of running the football, and I think Zamir White is going to have a big season for them. But, for the sake of argument, let's say Georgia does run the table during the regular season. Even if they did lose to the SEC West winner, whether that be Alabama, LSU, or maybe Texas A&M, it's a situation where I think they could still reach the college football playoff because their resume would potentially be that good. Looking at some Pac-12 teams, I look at Oregon in this mix. And the Ducks, they have an opportunity to make some noise early in the season because they go to Columbus to take on the Ohio State Buckeyes. And that would be a big win, not just for Oregon, but also for the Pac-12, because, there are going to be some people that still are not going to give the Pac-12 respect, even though this is looking like a weaker year for the Pac-12 conference. But Oregon would have to have a big conference season. They really couldn't afford any hiccups should they lose to Ohio State. But definitely if they beat Ohio State, that would be a big shot in the arm for this team. And I think CJ Verdell, their dynamic running back, is going to have a big year. I also look at the men of Troy coming out of the Pac-12, and I'm talking about USC. USC's got to find a way to take care of their business within the conference, because you look at it, just like I said with Oregon, the Pac-12 is not as strong as the Big 12, the ACC, the SEC, and the Big Ten. So it's a situation where, if you're USC, you got to go out there and you got to take care of your business. But if the men of Troy do find a way to either run the table or be a one-loss team, I think that they will be in a mix for a spot in the field of four. And then I'm going to talk about Notre Dame, because Notre Dame, like the other teams that are mentioned, they don't have the benefit of being in a conference and playing a conference championship game with a conference schedule. Of course, last year, due to COVID, we saw Notre Dame become a full member of the ACC. We know that they have the partnership and they play 5 games versus that conference every year. But Notre Dame has to go out there and take care of their business. And the talent is there when you think about running back Kyron Williams, tight end Michael Meyer, Isaiah Foskey on that defense, and of course, the Wisconsin transfer quarterback Jack Cohn. But what the Irish have to go out there and run the table. And you think about some of the games they have this season, they begin at Florida State in Tallahassee. They take on Wisconsin at Soldier Field in Chicago. They're home for Cincinnati. They're home for USC in North Carolina. And at the end of the season, they travel to Palo Alto to take on Stanford. So, it's a situation. There's plenty of opportunities for there for Notre Dame to make some noise and state their case. But the Irish definitely have to run the table if they're going to be in consideration for the field of four. So ultimately, who do I think makes the field of four? I think Oklahoma's there. I think Ohio State is there. And, contrary to like what a lot of people want to hear, I think we get 2 SEC teams once again this year in LSU and Alabama. But unlike how it was a few years ago, I think this time around, these 2 SEC teams meet in the semifinal. I think you're going to see LSU and Alabama get it on in the Cotton Bowl, while Oklahoma and Ohio State get it on in the Orange Bowl. You look at the other New Year's Six games for me. I'm looking at North Carolina and TCU in the Peach Bowl, Notre Dame and Texas A&M in the Fiesta Bowl, Wisconsin, USC in the Rose Bowl, and Georgia and Iowa State in the Sugar Bowl. For me, I know that they're going to be some people and say, hey, what about Clemson? I think Clemson is still going to be good this season. I just think they're going to take a slight step back from what everybody has expected or anticipated of them, or seen of them rather, over the last couple of years. And you look at it, some of the teams in the ACC have gotten a little bit better, which is going to make it a little bit tougher for Clemson. And I'm going on record right now. That's a very tough game for a reloading Clemson team to take right out of the chute versus a very good Georgia team, even though that game is in Charlotte and is closer proximity to a Clemson campus than it is Georgia's. So I think it's going to be a little bit tougher for them. I'm going to stand by it. I say North Carolina wins the ACC, hence why they get the New Year's Six bowl bid. I look at Texas A&M. Their biggest thing is that they play in the SEC West with Alabama. That's the one drawback for them. I think Georgia, they fall short of making a playoff, but obviously not falling short of a Sugar Bowl bid. With USC, obviously, I think they'll win the Pac-12, which gives them the automatic bid to the Rose Bowl. Wisconsin, I think they make the Big Ten title game, but I think they fall short to Ohio State. So it's a situation where, you know what? Hey, you want to keep that classic Big Ten Pac-12 matchup in the Rose Bowl. You can't get Ohio State there, so you get the second best team in that conference this year, which is Wisconsin. And then Notre Dame. Like I said, Notre Dame's going to be in the mix. I just don't think they're going to be good enough to make the playoff. But the thing is, when Notre Dame is a top 10 team or close to being a top 10 team, you always want them in those big bowl games because, of course, Notre Dame travels. And I think this is a good opportunity for Iowa State to finish off the careers of some of the great players that they have on this team, like Brock Purdy and Brees Hall, to get to a New Year's Six bowl game. And then there's TCU. I think TCU bounces back. They have a solid season under Gary Patterson. They've shown that they could win in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta before, and let's see what happens this time around. So that's the way I think that the field of four for the college football playoff is going to break down this year. And that's how I think that the New Year's Six games are going to break down this year as well. A lot of intriguing action right around the corner. The start of the college football season is right here. I'm excited. I know that there are plenty of people excited as well. And now it's simply time for these youngsters to get it on the gridiron. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take the time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.